Week 6 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few defense DST units I looked at off the wire this week. The first one, the Philadelphia Eagles. So right now you could go out there and get the Philadelphia Eagles off waivers if you need a defense for next week, where they're available in tons of fantasy leagues at 67%. So I know the defense hasn't been good this season, but as a 1 week plug-in and streaming option, they got a great matchup versus the Cleveland Browns that give up the third most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. And this Eagle team, you would assume they're going to get healthy during the bye week. Their offense is definitely going to get a big boost. Devonta Smith should be out of concussion protocol in return. And A.J. Brown, he should be returning as well off his injury, where he's missed the last few weeks as well. So Philadelphia with a good matchup versus Cleveland, getting reinforcements on offense where their defense don't have to be on the field half the ball game. This is a good time to go out there and get them, because we know Deshaun Watson's one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the league. Their offense isn't really moving the football. And Philadelphia, they still got some playmakers on defense that can make plays and create turnovers. I think this week versus Cleveland, they're a nice streaming option to add. Next DSTs, the Houston Texans. Their defense really hasn't been good this season, but another streaming option type of matchup in Week 6 at the Patriots, where they give up the fourth most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. So the last few weeks, like I said, for Houston, not much going on. Week 3 at Minnesota, 34 points allowed, 4 sacks. Week 4 versus Jags, 20 points allowed, a sack in that one. In Week 5 versus Buffalo, they got the victory, but 20 points allowed in the sacks, and they're not really getting sacks. They're giving up a decent amount of points. But this Patriot offense, they can't move the football really with Jacoby Brissett. They don't really have good playmaking wide receivers. Pretty much the offense is Ramondre Stevenson and Hunter Henry for this New England Patriot team. So this week is a streaming option available in 59% of fantasy leagues. I think the Texans could be decent for owners this week. The next DST is the Green Bay Packers. Packers out there still in tons of leagues, surprisingly, at 62%. And they're one of the better defenses in the league in terms of creating turnovers and making plays is Green Bay. And next week, I know it's a middle-of-the-pack matchup versus Arizona, where we know they got a good offense. Kyler Murray, James Conner, Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride. But Kyler Murray's good for turnovers, and he's also a quarterback that holds onto the football long at times and takes some big hits and sacks. Week 3 at Tennessee, 14 points allowed, 8 sacks, 2 interceptions, a fumble recovery, pick 6 in that one. Week 4 versus Minnesota, 31 points allowed, 2 sacks and INT, 2 fumble recoveries. In Week 5 at the Rams, they took care of business in that one as well, 13 points allowed, 3 sacks, an INT, a fumble recovery, and a block kick. So this Green Bay Packer DST, they go out there, like I said, they create turnovers, they get to the quarterback, and they got a good coached unit as well. So right now, like I said, out there in 62% of fantasy leagues and up there in top 8 in scoring and fantasy points at the position. Packers should be owned in more fantasy leagues. And the final defense DST I look to get off the wire this week's the Los Angeles Chargers, coming off a bye week, should get a little bit healthier is Los Angeles. And just like the Eagles DST, you could go out there right now and get them without wasting a waiver before Monday night's ball game, before this DST goes on waivers. So the first few games of the year for the Chargers. Week 1 versus the Raiders, 10 points allowed, 4 sacks and interception, 2 fumble recoveries. Week 2 at the Panthers, 3 points allowed, 2 sacks and INT. Week 3 at the Steelers, 20 points allowed, 2 sacks and INT. And Week 4 versus the Chiefs, I thought they did decent for 17 points allowed, 3 sacks and INT, a fumble recovery. So Week 6, a decent matchup with Denver. I know Denver just put up 34 points versus the Vegas Raiders, but we know that Raider defense is one of the worst in the league, and that Raider team overall, one of the worst teams in the league. So coming off by, like I said, refresh, playing a division opponent, even though Denver's won 3 in a row, they're riding high, no doubt. I believe Los Angeles could get pressure on Bo Nix in this one, and this could be a grinded-out type of ball game in a division matchup with 2 AFC West teams going at it. While they're out there in 88% of fantasy leagues, I would give the Chargers DST an add this week, so that's a few defense DST units I looked at off the wire for Week 6 of the fantasy football season.